Lee Tae-jin ruled Seoul's shadows like a god among mortals. One whispered command could erase entire families from existence. One signature could redirect billions through the city's criminal veins. But tonight, in his impenetrable fortress 60 stories above the glittering chaos of Gangnam, surrounded by enough firepower to wage a small war, the most feared man in South Korea was completely, utterly destroyed by an infant. His 4-month-old daughter had been screaming for 8 hours straight. 8 fucking hours. 5 nannies had fled in tears over the past 3 weeks. 9 different formulas sat abandoned in his restaurant-grade kitchen. Every pediatric specialist in the country had examined her. The diagnosis was always the same: healthy baby, no medical concerns, just unexplained distress. Tae-jin didn't believe in things that couldn't be explained. He built his empire on logic, on calculated violence, on understanding exactly which pressure points would make men beg for mercy. But his daughter, Hana, had reduced him to something he hadn't been since childhood: helpless. "Sir," his second-in-command, Park Soo-jin, stood rigid in the doorway of the nursery. Even she, who'd witnessed interrogations that would make hardened soldiers vomit, looked uncomfortable. "The Busan shipment requires your authorization. The Russians are threatening to—" "Get out." Tae-jin's voice was raw, stripped of its usual lethal precision. "Tae-jin, the organization needs—" "Out." The word tore from his throat with such violence that Soo-jin actually flinched. She vanished. Tae-jin stumbled to the floor-to-ceiling windows, his custom Brioni suit, midnight blue, perfectly tailored, now wrinkled beyond salvation. His reflection stared back, a ghost of the man who'd orchestrated the downfall of 3 rival syndicates, who'd personally executed the previous kingpin with nothing but a piano wire and 15 seconds. That man was gone, murdered by 9 pounds of furious infant who wouldn't stop screaming. Hana's mother, Jiyeon, had been the daughter of a Chinese triad boss. Their marriage was strategic warfare disguised as romance. She'd wanted access to Korean territory. He'd wanted expansion into Shanghai. Neither had wanted a child. Jiyeon died 3 hours after the emergency cesarean, her last breath a curse so vicious the attending doctors still had nightmares. The curse had one target: Tae-jin's name, his bloodline, his future. Maybe it had worked. "What do you want from me?" he whispered to the red-faced infant, her tiny body rigid with rage. "I've given you everything money can buy: the best doctors, equipment designed by NASA engineers for astronaut babies, round-the-clock surveillance to ensure your safety. What else exists?" Hana's answer was a shriek that seemed to physically pierce his chest cavity. His phone vibrated, a message from the council, the 5 underbosses who controlled Seoul's criminal infrastructure. "Emergency meeting, 1 hour. Your leadership is being questioned. Attendance is not optional." Tae-jin looked at his phone, then at his screaming daughter, then back at his phone. For the first time in his ruthless, calculating career, he made a completely irrational decision. He grabbed his car keys. The Lotus Women's Shelter existed in the invisible spaces between Seoul's gleaming skyscrapers and forgotten alleyways. It wasn't on Google Maps. It had no official address. The women who found refuge there knew it only through whispered recommendations passed from desperate hand to desperate hand. Tae-jin knew about it because his intelligence network tracked everything that moved through his territory, even the shadows his organization was supposed to ignore. He'd never paid it attention, until tonight, when desperation transformed him into something he'd never been: a man asking for help. His black Mercedes AMG GT idled in the darkness across the street, Hana still screaming in her custom car seat, the sound rattling against bulletproof windows. Through the shelter's warmly lit windows, he watched women moving, some young, barely 20, others weathered by survival, all carrying stories written in scars and determined eyes. Then he saw her. She stood in the communal kitchen, visible through sheer curtains, her back to the street as she stirred something in a massive pot. She was tall, nearly 6 feet, with deep umber skin that seemed to absorb and radiate the kitchen's golden light simultaneously. Her hair was wrapped in a stunning Ankara fabric, geometric patterns in burnt orange and deep purple that shouldn't have worked together, but somehow created visual poetry. She turned, laughing at something someone said, and Tae-jin's breath caught in his throat. She was devastating, not in the delicate, manufactured way of the women who orbited his world, hoping to catch his attention and his money. No, she possessed a raw, elemental beauty that seemed to radiate from somewhere deeper than skin. Her smile was wide, transforming her entire face into something that looked like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. Her hands moved with confident grace as she gestured, telling some story that had the other women leaning in, captivated. Hana's crying intensified, yanking him back to reality with the force of a physical blow. Tae-jin grabbed his daughter, not caring about protocol or appearances, or the fact that Seoul's most feared criminal shouldn't be seen begging for help at women's shelter. He crossed the street with long, predatory strides. He didn't knock. He kicked the door open hard enough to make it slam against the interior wall. Every woman inside froze mid-motion, like deer suddenly aware of a wolf in their midst. Tae-jin filled the doorway, 6 feet 3 inches of lethal elegance, holding a screaming infant, his expensive clothes and dead cold eyes completely wrong for this warm, worn space that smelled like home-cooked food and safety. "I need help." His voice cut through Hana's cries like a blade through silk. The women scattered. Some ran for the back rooms, others pressed against walls, their eyes wide with recognition and terror. All except one. She stepped forward, this magnificent woman from the kitchen, wiping her hands on her floral apron. Her dark eyes assessed him with absolutely zero fear, only calm, professional evaluation that somehow felt more dangerous than any weapon he'd ever faced. "You can't be here." Her Korean was accented, musical, lilting in ways that made each syllable dance. Nigerian, his brain supplied automatically, cataloging details even in crisis, specifically ego based on the tonal patterns. "Men aren't allowed, period." "My daughter won't stop screaming," Tae-jin said flatly, his control fracturing at the edges. "I've tried everything that exists. I'll pay anything that can be named." "Money doesn't fix crying babies." She moved closer, and she caught her scent, something warm and spiced, like cardamom and cocoa butter, completely foreign to his sterile world. "How long has she been like this?" 8 hours tonight, sometimes longer, sometimes 12, 14 hours without stopping. "When did she last eat properly?" "She won't eat. She refuses every bottle, every formula, every temperature, every—" "Not formula," the woman interrupted gently, her gaze shifting to Hana. Something in her expression softened, shifted from professional assessment to genuine compassion. "Breast milk." Tae-jin's jaw tightened hard enough to make his teeth ache. "Her mother is dead." "Donor milk?" "Imported from Switzerland, Japan, Norway, New Zealand, the most expensive sources in the world. She rejects everything." The woman stepped closer, close enough that he could see golden flecks in her dark brown eyes, could count the intricate braids woven into her head wrap. She reached out, and before he could stop her or activate the defensive training that had kept him alive for 15 years, she placed her hand on Hana's back. The crying didn't stop immediately, but it changed, lessened in intensity, shifted to a different pitch, like a radio being tuned in. "She's not sick," she said quietly, her hand moving in slow, firm circles against Hana's tiny spine. She's starving for connection. Formula isn't what she needs. She needs a heartbeat, warmth, a human anchor that doesn't calculate threat assessments while holding her. I hold her constantly, Tae-jin said defensively in a way that felt unfamiliar and uncomfortable. Do you? Her eyes met his, challenging, seeing through every wall he built. Or do you carry her while your mind calculates territory disputes and power plays and who needs to die to maintain your empire? Babies feel that distance. They feel everything. They're built to detect authenticity, and they reject anything less. Welcome back, fam. This is Afro-Korean Chronicles, and honey, buckle up because this story is about to take you on a ride that'll have your heart pounding, your palms sweating, and your faith and love restored. If you're ready for danger, obsession, protection, and a love story that'll wreck you in the best way, you're exactly where you need to be. Drop that like, share with your crew, and subscribe because trust me, you need to see what happens next. And yes, tell me where you're watching from. I love knowing my global family is tuned in. Tae-jin's mouth opened, then closed. Nobody spoke to him this way. Nobody dared. Before he could formulate a response that wouldn't involve threats, she made a decision. She turned to the other women, speaking rapidly in English. I'm taking him to the private room. Nobody disturb us under any circumstances. She looked back at Tae-jin. You come with me. Leave your weapons at the door. I'm not. You have 2 guns, shoulder holster left side, ankle holster right side. I can see both outlines. There's probably a knife somewhere too. Leave them or leave entirely. Your choice, but choose fast because your daughter is suffering. Tae-jin stared at her for a long, dangerous moment. This woman who'd identified his concealed weapons like she'd done it 1,000 times before. This stranger who commanded him like she had any authority whatsoever. Then, incredibly, he reached inside his jacket and placed his Sig Sauer P226 on the entrance table, followed by the backup Glock from his ankle, and finally, the butterfly knife from his pocket. Satisfied? That's better, she nodded. Follow me. The private room was small, a rocking chair, changing table, soft mat on the floor, walls painted a soothing cream color. She closed the door behind them and gestured to the chair. Sit. Tae-jin sat, still holding the crying Hana, feeling distinctly like he'd been outmaneuvered by an opponent he didn't understand. I'm going to do something that will seem inappropriate, she said, her voice steady and professional in a way that suggested medical training, but it's the only thing that will work. I'm going to feed her directly. Do you consent? Tae-jin's brain short-circuited. Your what? I have a 7-month-old daughter. She's sleeping in the next room. I'm still nursing. Your daughter needs what only a nursing mother can provide. Not just milk, but the complete experience. The skin-to-skin contact, the heartbeat rhythm, the biochemical signals that tell an infant they're safe. It's neuroscience, not magic. I don't even know your name. Amara, she said. Amara Okafor, and you're Lee Tae-jin, though you probably didn't expect me to know that. His eyes narrowed to dangerous slits. You know who I am? Everyone in this shelter knows who controls this territory. We stay invisible because it keeps us alive. We pay attention to who has the power to hurt us. She met his gaze steadily. Now do you consent or not? Because your daughter is suffering, and I can end that suffering in approximately 30 seconds. Tae-jin looked down at Hana's red, scrunched face, at her tiny fists trembling with effort, at the tear tracks that had dried and been replaced 100 times, and felt something crack open in his chest cavity, a fissure in armor he thought was impenetrable. Yes. Amara took the baby with confident, gentle hands that spoke of extensive experience. She settled into the rocking chair and with practiced ease adjusted her clothing. Within seconds, Hana was latched and feeding, her cries stopping so abruptly it felt like a miracle. The silence was devastating, more impactful than any gunshot Tae-jin had ever heard. His daughter, his screaming, inconsolable daughter, was completely peaceful, making small, satisfied sounds as she fed. Her tiny hand rested against Amara's dark skin, fingers occasionally flexing in contentment. Amara hummed something low and melodic, a song in a language Taejin didn't recognize, but that seemed to come from somewhere ancient and unbreakable. She rocked gently, her eyes soft as she watched Hana's face. How? Taejin's voice came out broken, stripped of every defense. How did you do that? I didn't do anything extraordinary, Amara said softly. I just gave her what she was asking for. Babies don't have complex needs. They need to feel safe. They need to know they're not alone. They need someone whose entire attention is on them, not fragmented across 1,000 other concerns. Taejin lowered himself to the floor, his expensive suit forgotten, and watched his daughter's face transform from anguish to contentment. For the first time in months, the crushing weight on his chest eased slightly. He could breathe. I don't know how to do this, he admitted, the words escaping before his legendary control could stop them. I know how to run an empire. I know how to eliminate threats before they materialize. I know how to negotiate deals that reshape economies. I don't know how to be this. Amara looked at him, and her eyes held no judgment, only understanding that felt more dangerous than contempt. Being a father isn't about what you know, it's about who you're willing to become. Something shifted in the room. Taejin felt it like a change in air pressure before a storm, a dangerous, intoxicating pull toward this woman who'd accomplished the impossible with simple competence and genuine compassion. I need you, he said, the name sinkled to the floor, from everything defined to the bare, vulnerable state. Excuse me? To help her, to teach me, name your price. Mr. Lee, anything, a house, money, citizenship if you need it, protection, a completely new identity if that's what it takes, whatever you... I'm not for sale, Amara interrupted, her voice firm but not harsh, and neither is my care. I'm a nurse, not a commodity. Then what do you want? She was quiet for a long moment, looking down at the sleeping baby in her arms, then back at the Mafia king sitting on the floor of a women's shelter, and wondered if she was making the biggest mistake of her life, or the bravest decision. Neither of them knew that this moment would change everything, their lives, their hearts, the entire power structure of Seoul's criminal underworld. But they would learn, starting tomorrow. Amara stood in the entrance of Taejin's penthouse fortress, her 7-month-old daughter Zainab strapped to her chest in a worn but sturdy carrier, and felt reality settle over her like a heavy blanket. The space was obscene, 20-foot ceilings, abstract art that probably cost more than entire villages could generate in a decade. Floor-to-ceiling bulletproof windows overlooking a city that glittered like scattered diamonds against black velvet. Everything was black, white, chrome, and glass, cold, sterile, designed to intimidate rather than welcome. Zainab made a small, uncomfortable sound. I know, my love, Amara whispered in Igbo, kissing her daughter's forehead. This place has no soul, but we're going to survive it. We're going to be smart and careful and strong. Taejin appeared from a hallway, Hana finally sleeping peacefully in his arms. He changed into simple black clothing, but even casual, he radiated lethal elegance. His eyes found Amara immediately, and something flickered in their dark depths. Relief, maybe, or something more complicated. Your rooms are in the East Wing, he said. Private entrance, full kitchen, security system that you control personally. You'll have complete autonomy over your space. Where's Hana's nursery? West Wing, opposite side of the penthouse. Amara frowned. That's too far. If she wakes distressed, I need to reach her quickly. Move her nursery adjacent to my rooms. Taejin's jaw tightened, the look of a man completely unused to being countermanded. The West Wing nursery has been professionally designed by pediatric specialists. It has equipment worth $500,000, medical monitoring systems, temperature controls. I don't care what it has, Amara interrupted his almost calm reply. Babies don't need expensive equipment. They need proximity to their caregiver. They need to hear breathing, feel presence, know they're not alone in the dark. Move it or this arrangement ends before it begins. For 5 long seconds they stared at each other, a battle of wills between empire and maternal instinct, between power built on fear and strength built on compassion. Taejin broke first. It'll be moved by tonight. Good, Amara adjusted Zainab's carrier. Now show me the kitchen. I need to prepare proper food, not whatever frozen imported nonsense you've been surviving on. You look malnourished despite clearly having access to unlimited resources. Something almost like a smile ghosted across Taejin's face. You're very commanding for someone who arrived exactly 1 hour ago. You're very accustomed to fear-based compliance for someone who desperately needs help. I don't fear you, Mr. Lee. That's precisely why this arrangement will work. The almost smile vanished, replaced by something intense and unreadable. Don't mistake necessity for safety, Amara. Don't mistake my compassion for weakness. They stood inches apart, Hana sleeping between them like a small breathing bridge connecting two different worlds, until Zainab made another fussy sound that broke the tension. Kitchen, Amara said firmly. Now. This time, Taejin led the way. 3 days later. The council meeting happened in Taejin's underground war room, a space that existed far beneath the penthouse. No windows, reinforced walls, soundproofing that could silence screams. Taejin sat at the head of an obsidian conference table, surrounded by the 5 underbosses who controlled Seoul's criminal infrastructure. These men had sworn loyalty with blood oaths, but loyalty in their world was as reliable as morning mist, and they smelled weakness. You missed the Busan negotiation, Kim Jae-won said, his voice deceptively casual. A negotiation that cost us $5 million in lost revenue because our leader was indisposed. Family emergency, Taejin replied, his tone flat and dangerous. Family, Park Min-suk laughed, a sharp, ugly sound. The great Lee Taejin, brought low by a baby. How beautifully poetic. Watch your tone, Sujin warned from her position by the door, her hand resting on her concealed weapon. Or what? Sung Dae-ho leaned forward, his scarred hands flat on the table. We all know the truth. You're distracted, weakened. That child is a liability you can't afford. Taejin's hand, resting on the table, curled into a fist. My daughter is none of your concern. She is when your situation makes you unreliable. Jaewon slid a folder across the obsidian surface. The Yakuza are circling. The Russians smell opportunity. Your ex-wife's family is filing for custody, claiming you're an unfit father. They want the child as leverage against our operations. Taejin opened the folder. Legal documents, photographs, intelligence reports showing his enemies consolidating like vultures sensing death. Jian's family thinks they can take Hana and use her to claim legitimacy over my territories, Taejin said slowly, processing the implications. They're severely mistaken. Are they? Min-suk challenged, because from where we sit, you're barely holding it together. You've hired some foreign woman to play nursemaid. You're distracted, emotional, vulnerable. Careful, Taejin interrupted, his voice dropping to a lethal whisper that made even hardened killers tense. Very, very careful how you finish that sentence. Min-suk's eyes glittered with malice. We did background investigation on her. Amara Okafor, Nigerian refugee, asylum case rejected twice, living illegally in a women's shelter with her illegitimate daughter. No family connections, no protection, no legal standing. He smiled, showing too many teeth. Very vulnerable. The temperature in the room dropped 20 degrees. Taejin stood slowly, and every man at the table tensed, hands moving toward concealed weapons. If anyone, and I mean anyone, touches her or her daughter, I will personally remove your organs one by one while keeping you conscious through the entire process. Am I perfectly, crystallinely clear? So it's true, Jaewon said quietly. You've developed feelings for this woman. You're compromised. I've developed an appreciation for competence, Taejin corrected coldly, something increasingly rare in this room. Then prove it, Min-suk challenged. The custody hearing is in 2 days. Jian's family has political connections, expensive lawyers, sympathetic narratives. Tragic mother dies. Dangerous criminal father neglects infant. They'll take Hana, and with her, your legitimacy, unless, He paused meaningfully. Unless you eliminate the problem. Meaning? Send the child away, disappear her, claim she died, remove the leverage entirely. Minsock leaned back. It's practical, clean. It eliminates weakness and restores your reputation as someone who makes hard choices. The room went silent. Tae-jin looked at each man in turn, memorizing faces, cataloging betrayals for future reference. "Gentlemen," he said, his smile terrible and cold, "I appreciate your concern, but I'll handle the custody hearing my way. Meeting adjourned." As they filed out, Soo-jin approached. "Sir, they're right about one thing. Jian's family has built a strong case. Without solid evidence of Hana's stability and your capability as a father, get me the best family lawyer in Seoul. No, get me the best 3 lawyers and increase security on Amara and her daughter. Triple shifts. I want armed guards, surveillance, the complete protection protocol." "You think the council will move against her?" "I think desperate men do desperate things." His eyes hardened. "And I think I need to have a very honest conversation with Amara about what she's walked into." That night, Amara was in the relocated nursery, rocking Hana after her evening feeding when Tae-jin entered. It was past midnight. He looked exhausted, the careful mask he wore cracking at the edges. "She's gaining weight beautifully," Amara said softly, not looking up. 2.5 pounds in 3 days. The pediatrician was actually shocked, called it miraculous. "Because of you. Because of consistent nutrition and emotional security." She finally met his eyes. "What happened today?" "What makes you think?" "You're moving differently, heavier, like you're carrying something toxic. Your jaw is tight. You haven't made eye contact with Hana once since entering this room." Amara's voice was gentle but firm. "What happened?" Tae-jin was silent for a long moment, studying this woman who read him so easily. "There's a custody hearing. My late wife's family wants Hana. They'll use her as leverage against my organization." "Will they win?" "Not if I can prove she's thriving, that she's in a stable, healthy environment with a capable father." Amara gently placed the sleeping Hana in her crib, then turned to face Tae-jin fully. "You want me to testify?" "Yes." "As what? Your employee? Your son's wet nurse? What exactly do I tell the court about why I'm here?" "The truth, that you're providing essential care that's saving her life. And when they investigate me, when they discover I'm an undocumented immigrant with a rejected asylum case, when your enemies use me to prove you're so desperate you hired someone with no legal standing." Amara's voice remained calm, but her eyes flashed. "I'm not a solution, Tae-jin. I'm a weapon they'll use against you." "Then we fix your legal status immediately." "It's not that simple." "It is if you marry me." The words detonated in the air between them. Amara stared at him. "Excuse me?" Tae-jin stepped closer, his expression intense. "Marriage grants immediate legal residency. It provides legitimacy to your presence in Hana's life. It makes you untouchable in court. It solves multiple problems simultaneously." "It solves your problems," Amara corrected, her voice rising slightly. "It turns me into property, a legal shield, a convenience." "No, it turns you into family, protected, permanent, untouchable." "I am not marrying a mafia boss for paperwork." "Then marry me because my daughter will die without you, because in 3 days you've accomplished what an army of experts couldn't, because when I watch you with her, I see something I thought I'd killed in myself years ago, hope, because I am genuinely terrified that if they take her, I'll lose the only purely good thing I've ever created." Amara's breath caught. She expected cold calculation. Not this. Not vulnerability so naked it hurt to witness. "You don't love me," she said quietly. "No," Tae-jin agreed, "but I respect you. I trust you. And in my world, that's infinitely rarer than love." "What about what I want? What about Zainab's father?" "You're here because you're running from something. No family support system, no resources, living in a shelter. His eyes held hers. "I'm offering you a way to stop running, and Zainab's father, if he cared, he'd be here." The painful truth of that statement landed like a physical blow. Zainab's father had disappeared the moment Amara revealed her pregnancy, leaving her alone in a foreign country. She turned away, looking at the sleeping Hana. "This is insane." "Yes. I don't even like you. I don't particularly like most people. You're a criminal." "I'm very aware." She laughed, a short, desperate sound. "If I say yes, it's a real marriage, legal, binding, not some business arrangement where you keep mistresses and I stay in my designated corner. If you want me to protect your daughter, then you respect me as an equal partner." "Done." "And Zainab is legally adopted as your daughter, same rights, same inheritance, same protection as Hana, completely equal status." Taejin didn't even hesitate. "Done." Amara turned back to face him, her dark eyes searching his for any sign of deception or manipulation. "Why do I feel like I'm making a deal with the devil?" "Because you probably are," Taejin said, "but I'm a devil who keeps his promises." She extended her hand. 3-month trial marriage. If it doesn't work, we divorce amicably, and you maintain my legal status and Zainab's adoption regardless of the outcome. He took her hand, his grip warm and surprisingly gentle. 3 months. Neither of them knew they wouldn't make it 3 weeks before everything exploded. 5 days later, the courtroom was packed. Lawyers in expensive suits, social workers with judgmental clipboards, thinly veiled criminals from both sides trying to look respectable. Jian's family, the wealthy, politically connected young family, sat on one side. Their grief was performative, perfectly staged, designed for maximum sympathy. Taejin sat on the other, Amara beside him, both dressed impeccably. She wore a deep burgundy hanbok that Taejin had commissioned, respecting the court while maintaining her dignity. Her hair was wrapped elegantly in matching fabric, and she radiated calm competence. The young family's lawyer attacked immediately. "Mr. Lee, you expect this court to believe that your daughter, a child who lost her mother at birth, is thriving in the care of an unmarried mafia boss and his foreign employee?" "She's my wife," Taejin said calmly. "We married 4 days ago, and yes, our daughter is thriving." The courtroom erupted in whispers. The lawyer's expression soured. "A conveniently timed marriage, suspiciously strategic." "Love is rarely convenient," Amara interjected, her accented Korean clear and strong. "But commitment is deliberate. I married Lee Taejin because I love his daughter and because I witnessed a man willing to completely transform his world to be the father Hana deserves." "You're a Nigerian immigrant with a rejected asylum case." "I'm a registered nurse with specialized training in infant care, currently enrolled in Seoul National University's Advanced Pediatric Program. My immigration status is resolved through my marriage, and I have saved Hana's life through consistent, evidence-based care that all the money in the world could not provide." She stood, and the entire courtroom seemed to lean forward. Hana was failing to thrive, severely. She'd been through 6 nannies, multiple formula changes, and was dangerously dehydrated when I first met her. Within 48 hours of my care, she began gaining weight. Within a week, she was developmentally on track. She pulled out a folder, laying out medical documentation with confident precision. "I have pediatric records, weight charts, developmental assessments, and testimony from 3 independent pediatricians showing dramatic improvement. The young family wants Hana?" She turned to face them directly. "Ask them how many hours they've spent with her. Ask them if they know she's lactose sensitive. Ask them why they waited 4 months to suddenly care about their granddaughter's well-being." The young lawyer stammered, trying to regain control. "This is highly irregular." "What's irregular?" Tajin said, standing beside his wife in a unified front, is a family using a child as a political tool. Your clients don't want my daughter. They want leverage over my business operations. I'm offering Hana stability, love, and 2 parents completely committed to her well-being. They're offering wealth and plans for a boarding school in Switzerland where she'll be raised by strangers. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s with sharp eyes, raised her hand for silence. I'll review all medical records and testimonies. Court adjourned until tomorrow for my deliberation. That night, Amara was giving Hana her late feeding when every light in the penthouse went out. Complete, absolute darkness. Her nursing training kicked in immediately. She grabbed Hana, still latched, still feeding, and moved away from the windows to the reinforced corner she'd identified on day 1. In the adjacent room, Zainab began to cry. "Tajin!" Amara called out, keeping her voice steady despite her hammering heart. Footsteps, too many, too fast, thundering through the penthouse like a death squad. The emergency lights flickered on, bathing everything in blood-red illumination. 3 men in tactical gear burst through the nursery door. Not external enemies, not rival gangs, Tajin's own security team. "Park Min-suk sends regards," one said, raising his weapon toward Amara. She didn't hesitate. She shielded Hana with her body, spun towards Zainab's room, and kicked the door shut behind her with enough force to activate the magnetic reinforced lock she'd personally installed without telling anyone. A security measure nobody knew about except her. They fired. Bullets slammed into the reinforced door, creating thunderous impacts, but not penetrating. The room was soundproofed, bulletproofed, designed as a panic room disguised as a nursery. Amara grabbed Zainab from her crib, pressed both babies against her chest, and dropped to the floor in the corner where the walls were thickest, where multiple layers of steel and concrete could stop anything. Her heart hammered, her hands shook, but she kept them steady. "Mama's got you," she whispered in Igbo to both infants. "Mama won't let anything happen to you. I promise, I promise." Outside, she heard more gunfire, different weapons, Tajin's voice cold and lethal, barking orders in Korean so rapid she could barely follow. The siege lasted 7 minutes. It felt like 7 hours. When the door finally opened, it was Tajin, covered in blood that clearly wasn't his, eyes wild and frantic until they found her. He crossed the room in 3 strides, dropped to his knees, and pulled all 3 of them into his arms with desperate, crushing force. "Are you hurt?" His hands frantically checked Amara, then both babies, looking for any sign of injury. "Did they touch you? Did any bullets?" "We're fine." Amara's voice shook slightly. "The door held. Your own men, Tajin. Your own security team." "They're dead," Tajin said flatly. "All of them. Park Min-suk tried to stage a coup, thought killing you would force me to choose between revenge and empire, would push me back into the man I was before." His hands cupped her face, forcing her to meet his eyes, eyes that held something raw and terrifying. "I chose you. I chose this. I burned down everything for you. Tajin, I love you," he said, the words raw, unpracticed, like speaking a foreign language. "I don't exactly know when it happened. Maybe when you first touched my daughter and stopped her crying with nothing but compassion. Maybe when you demanded I move her nursery and refused to be afraid of me. Maybe when you stood in that courtroom and defended us like we were worth defending. But I love you, and I will destroy anyone and anything that threatens you." Amara's eyes filled with tears. "You're insane." "Yes. This life is impossible." "Yes. I should take my daughter and run as far as possible." "But you won't, because you love me too." His thumb brushed away her tears with surprising gentleness. "And God help her, she did." Against all logic, all self-preservation, all common sense, she loved him. She kissed him, fierce and desperate and real. Both babies made small, oblivious sounds between them, creating a strange, perfect moment in the aftermath of violence. When they broke apart, Amara pressed her forehead to his. If we do this, if I truly stay, things change fundamentally. No more counsel based on fear, no more empire built on violence. We build something completely new together. What are you suggesting? Legitimize everything. Turn your network into legal businesses. Use your power and connections to protect people instead of exploiting them. Use your intelligence network for good. Her eyes held his. Be the man Hana and Zainab need you to be. Be the man I know you can become. Tajin was silent for a long moment. Everything she was asking meant dismantling everything he'd built, betraying the code he'd lived by for 15 years, becoming vulnerable in ways that could get him killed. He looked at his daughter, sleeping peacefully against Amara's chest, at her daughter, his daughter now, watching him with wide, curious eyes, at this woman who'd walked into his fortress and conquered it without firing a single shot. "Okay," he said quietly. "Okay, we'll build something new."